welcome back to another video. It is me, the Review Master 19 here, and today I bring you the Yokusuka MXY7 Ohka. Let's get into it. Before I start the video, I want to say a huge thank you to all of my subscribers. We've made it to 157. I appreciate you all, and I hope you have a great Christmas. So we're going to take a look at the Yokusuka MXY7 Model 11 Ohka. The Ohka is a piloted kamikaze bomb. That's right, a kamikaze piloted bomb. This was made in the years of 1943 to 1944, all the way to 1945, but it was 1944 to 1945, I got that wrong, sorry. And it was a piloted guided bomb for the Special Attack Corps of the IJN. Now, let's talk about what it is. It's a piloted bomb, but how is it a bomb? Well, if we take a look at the general construction of the aircraft, it was built of wood and non-metal alloys. And unfortunately, these were made with unskilled labour, which means that there were slaves who built these and prisoners of war, just like the Germans who made the V2 rocket using slave labour. The aircraft could be flown in a one-way mission, and there were pilots trained specifically for this, and it was a very deadly thing. And here's the thing. Once the cockpit was closed into place, there was no escape. The Japanese pilots knew that they would never return home, and even if they chose to change their mind, it was too late. They were too dedicated to even think about that. But the idea of the Ohka was to kill enemy shipping, and that's exactly what it did, to terrible effect. But the cockpit, the designers, the Imperial Japanese Army who built this, they made sure that once this cockpit was shut, there was no turning back. There was also two hardware hooks here, basically to hold the aircraft in place, and it would usually be carried by a Mitsubishi G4M2E Betty bomber, four-bladed by the way, for long-range missions, or it would be carried by another aircraft, which I forget the name. The Ohka would never make it to the target. Most of them would never make it to their targets because the mother planes would be intercepted and shot down way before the Ohkas were launched. And the thing about the Ohka is it was launched a few kilometers away from the target. The pilot would open up a hatch through the cockpit floor in the Betty and get inside, and they would radio themselves like goodbye, farewell, sayonara, and Tenoheka Banzai, that's honor for Japan, I believe. That's what their war cry is. And they would get into these, and when they were ready to go, they would release the Ohka, and the pilot would do an unsteady glide. And there was a dial, so you could turn it 1, 2, 3, and that was for the 3 very, very fast and powerful 90 Type 4 Model 20 solid propellant rockets, providing 1,764 pounds of thrust. That is a top speed of, you're talking about 860 kilometers per hour, but if you want maximum level speed, it's 534 miles per hour. That's nearly 600 miles per hour. This thing was incredibly fast, and because of its small, lightweight construction, only being made of wood, which was mostly balsa, yes, it was very scary, but it wasn't the aircraft that was scary, or the bomb that was scary. It was the armament that it had. In the nose, it was fitted with a 2,646 pound warhead, and this was designed to hit the targets. Pretend that my bottle is a ship, okay? When it goes like, when the pilot and the Ohka are incinerated. And there were prototypes where they paint these orange, and they would have skids so the pilot could belly land, but this was the final prototype. A few of the Ohkas actually made it to their targets. I believe this one being the one that sunk the USS Manet El Avali, which was a destroyer that managed to see through a kamikaze attack by Yokusuka D4Y2 Judies, which is a dive bomber, Aichi D3A2 Vals, which is again a dive bomber, and the MXY7 Ohka. Ohka is basically cherry blossom in Japanese, and just like the cherry blossom, the pilot will never return, just like the blossom will never return to the tree. It was mostly for propaganda, and it's a very sad reminder of what war can do to us. It can make us do horrible things, and we must never let it happen again. This model is very nice. I built this. It's not great because of the black paint. You've also got a pitot tube, which is an airflow speed indicator, but I don't think they would have needed those. On some of the Ohkas, if I zoom in, they would have had a little glass reticle, so they could line up their sights as they proceeded to the target, but very, very deadly indeed. And another thing about these is it was a one-way mission. So they would launch, they would release, and they would go to their inevitable victorious death, as the Japanese so called it. But it wasn't a victorial death, it was a waste of materials, but the Japanese were so desperate that they tried everything. But yes, it was powered by a Type 4 Model 20 solid propellant rocket motor with 3 of those. So 1, 2, 3, and then it would go. That's my jet rocket noise. If that was loud for you, I do apologise. I see lots of Ohka models with the Hanata Sun. That's not actually accurate. They had this on them, and a lot of these were captured at Sampiliu and Guadalcanal and Iwo Jima. And you'll see there's a film on YouTube somewhere where they unscrew this, because in here is a bomb. It's a big, massive bomb. And that's where most of the nose weight is. So it's like made of light sheet metal and wood. And it was so fast, it was very lightweight, a bit like the Mosquito, the Wooden Wonder, as we'll get into in another video. But yeah, the Ohka, very terrifying weapon. But only a handful were made, but most of them were lost because United States Army, or Navy, sorry, the radar was so good. By the time the mother planes or the Bettys or whatever planes carried these, Bettys mainly, G4M2E, 4 bladed, by the way. By the time they'd made it to the target, the planes would have intercepted the bombs and shot them down. As you know, in the Battle of Britain, the bombs are very vulnerable, especially if the escorts, which were the A6M Zeros and A7M Ripu, or whatever, Oscars or Jakes or whatever aircraft they had, to escort them. They could only escort them so long, and then they had to head back home or proceed with their kamikaze missions, and many of these were lost. But these were very deadly. As I said before, in the cockpit you just had a control stick, a little dial for the propeller, and yeah, your control stick basically made the elevators up and down. Most of them were fixed. There would be the tail planes, which had a rudder, so left or right, or up and down, and stabilizers. So yeah, there was no way of stopping this thing. Unless you hit it, which you'd be very lucky if you did. There was a story about an Ohka being hit and slicing through a ship, and it went straight through to the other side, and the ship didn't sink. I believe that was the Manet El Avali, I think. But yeah, very deadly weapon. Another thing is the production began in August 1944, and they launched work with the help of the Germans because of the flying bomb program. But the scary thing is, we're going to talk about the air launch. So the air launch of the Ohka, the Betty would bring the Ohka to within about 23 miles, so we're talking about 337 kilometers, to the target, and at which point the Ohka would then be released and fly towards its objective. And in a fast and powered glide, its small size and speed, that's why it was so fast. The Ohka would present a difficult target to hit because of its small, nimble look and its very fast speed. And there's nothing they could do apart from the pilot doing his aggressive bidding of destroying a ship. About 4.8 kilometers, the Ohka pilot ignited the 3 solid propellant rocket motors, and then the aircraft would accelerate to a speed of 576 miles per hour. If you want that in kilometers, that's roughly about 927 kilometers per hour and 576 miles per hour. Then pulled into a steep dive, and the warhead would detonate on impact, killing the pilot in the process. Yeah. So it was very scary. It was a 2,226 pound warhead in the nose of the Ohka, and it would detonate on impact. 755 Ohkas were built, by the way, guys. 755. Imagine that. There were more V1 Doodlebugs, over 1,000 launched, but we'll get into that in another day. Some were actually made as Ohka trainers, which were K1s, and it was a Model 22, which is a smaller version, and it was designed to be carried by the Yokusuka P1Y Ginga or Jinga bomber. Around 50 of the weapons were completed, but the Model 22 actually had a smaller warhead and a gas turbine engine rather than a rocket propellant, and the Model 11 was actually a failure, and the Model 33 wasn't ready by the time the war ended. So there were many different versions, this being the 11. The Model 33 actually still had the warhead, and the intended launch was from the Nakajima G8N1 Renzen, which is actually a nuclear bomber made by Japan, which never actually saw production. You can see a few documentaries of it. The 43A, though, had folding wings, and the 43B had jettisonable wingtips, which would make it just like a flying dart. But yeah, they were... Yotan Airfield, Okinawa, was where they would be found. So anyway, that was the quick talk and quick look on the Yokusuka MXY7 Ohka Model 11. If you like these historic videos and reviews, I recommend to subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next one. Apart from that, I hope you've learned a bit of history and what we can learn from it. Take care, guys, and I shall see you in the next one.